Properties. Okay. Thank you so much, Karuna, for letting me know. And for anyone who's watching the recording, you can move ahead to the 10-minute mark. That's when we will officially get started. So as I was saying, I was hoping to move to record outside, but this camera, this webcam I use, it can't really take it's too bright. It's just too bright, so it's overexposed. All right. So hopefully the problem is fixed. Okay, it works now. Thank you, Karuna, for letting me know. I see we have Mickey, May here, of course, Guy, Daniel, Cliff, Anna, Sophia. Welcome in. Yeah, we don't have a fire today, so it's a little bit chilly, a little bit colder. Katal, yeah, Katal also just noticed that. Yes, no fire at this moment, but that's why we're going to bring up the fire inside of us with our meditation practice. The fire of Zen.
Are you making the...
Yeah, we're going to have it. We're going to start soon. Reverb on YouTube. Uh-oh. All right, so maybe the reverb is fixed now. Hopefully, we're having some technical issues today through YouTube. That's why it's definitely best if you can navigate Discord. This is definitely the best way to join in, and then we see this gathering of people. In the next couple days, we're going to have some community events. So we do more like community council. So each person have an opportunity to introduce themselves and share about their practice, what they do, why they are here, just kind of the position, the situation they are in their life. And through that, we kind of get to know each other, because one of the greatest things that we're doing here is forming a community of mutual support and accountability and intimacy. And over time, get to know each other, and relationships form, but all in the Dharma. Always relationships that are forming out of our meditation practice. And so in that way is very wholesome and very simple. Otherwise, relationships can be very complicated and difficult, confusing. Okay. So just another 4 minutes or so before we begin. If you're here, you might want to make sure that you have a blanket because it's chilly.
Yes. No, I was fine, yeah. Yes.
Okay. So if you are here on the Discord, you're certainly encouraged to share your camera if it's comfortable for you, if it's possible. So we feel more fully alive, fully in the space, embodied. And as we usually do, we'll start with a certain amount of a meditation to help to calm, to settle. We start that with the sound of the bell. Before we are really invited into our meditation practice with the sound of the bell, uh, take a moment to give some extra attention to your posture. So your shoulders are back, your spine, your spinal column somewhat straight, upright. Making sure that you are comfortable and upright. We can start to give our full attention, our full fascination, our full curiosity to the state, the experience of our body right now. And as we hear the sound of the bell, we are invited to go deeply into this present moment, deeply into our awareness of the body, and to fully stop, to relax, to give up any activities, any stories, any situations that have been going on up to this point. As we hear the sound of the bell, this invitation to enjoy stillness, to enjoy the breath and the body. confusing, if we at any time become confused or we wanted to try meditation, we wanted to participate, but then we become confused and we say, well, I give up, I'm done. Any time that we encounter that sense of not sure what we're doing, not sure what this meditation is all about, just give your full attention to breathing sincerely. Breathing sincerely and being aware of the body. All those thoughts and confusions and doubts, it's totally okay if they are there. Being with the experience of the body, being with the experience of the mind, and just breathing with your full sincerity. For these few moments of meditation before we continue our reading, taking it as our job, taking ourselves to be the CEOs of just breathing, just being aware of our body. Allow our body to relax more and more. Allow our activities, our goals, to come to a stop. Just breathing and being aware. We oftentimes want to make any excuse possible to start going in another direction, to start believing in some thought, to live through preference. But actually, this is no time to indulge in our preferences. This is no time to worship the tongue, liking this taste and not liking that taste. But every sound, every sensation, every thought, a reminder to turn inwards. A reminder to just be and not react, not chase. To step into this path, to make progress, to become experienced, there is a price. We all have to pay this price. And that is to try, to be with, to put forth the effort, to look into reality. Understanding the nature of reality is not as convenient as McDonald's, not as cheap as Walmart. We have to be willing to pay the price to put down our selfishness, our constant self-indulgence, to just be, to just stop, to relax, to be aware. Actually, it's as simple as hearing the sound of the bell. Remembering that in the end, if it's your first day of meditation, If you're a monk who's been practicing for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, it all comes down to stopping at this moment, just breathing, just being aware. Getting distracted and returning back to the sound of the bell. So we can continue with our reading today of the Zen teachings, the direct teachings of Zen Master Empty Cloud, and keeping in mind to listen from this place of depth, listen from this place of practice rather than the intellect. And we can take this listening itself as a meditation. We would all like to reflect the moon of enlightenment. We would all like to get home to innocence. How do we accomplish this? We follow the Dharma. The Buddha saw the unenlightened life's ignorance as a diseased condition. His Four Noble Truths have a medical connotation. 1. Life in samsara is bitter and painful. 2. Craving is the cause of this bitterness and pain. 3. There is a cure for this malady. 4. The cure is to follow the Eightfold Path. First, we need to recognize that we are ill. Second, we need a diagnosis. Third, we need to be assured that what's wrong with us will respond to treatment. Fourth, we require a therapeutic regimen. Samsara is the world seen through the ego. It is a troubled and sick world because of the ego's unceasing cravings. Trying to satisfy the demands of the ego is like trying to name the highest number. No matter how large a number we can think of, one more can always be added to make it an even higher number. There is no way to attain the ultimate. Dear friends, is it not true that no matter how much money a person has, they always think they need a little more? That no matter how comfortable a person's home is, they always want a place that is a little more palatial? That no matter how many admirers they have, they always need to hear a little more applause. Constant striving results in constant strife. Constant striving results in constant difficulty, bitterness. So what are we to do? First, we must understand that the problems which the ego creates cannot be solved in samsara's world of ever-changing illusions. Why? Because the ego itself is an ever-changing fictional character that merely acts and reacts in response to life's fluctuating conditions, conditions which it can never quite comprehend. Constant striving, constant chasing after a goal, getting what you want, results in constant difficulty, constant stress, constant disagreement. So what are we to do? First, we must understand that the problems which the ego creates cannot be solved in samsara's world of ever-changing illusion. We can say the world of samsara is just like the world of a dream. Why? Because the ego itself is an ever-changing fictional character that merely acts and reacts in response to life's fluctuating conditions, conditions which it can never quite comprehend. It's like trying to play football when the length of the field keeps changing. This is likely talking about soccer. And instead of one ball in play, there are 20. And the players are either running on and off the field or sleeping on the grass. Nobody is really sure which game is being played, and everybody plays by different rules. Now, anyone who was expected to be both player and referee could never find pleasure in such a game. They would find their life on the field to be an endless exercise in fear, confusion, frustration, and exhaustion. The Eightfold Path guides, delimits, and establishes rules which are clear. Everyone can follow them. The first step is right understanding. Understanding requires both study and consultation with a master or an experienced practitioner. Information acquired only through reading is never sufficient. Is the book accurate? If it is, do we truly comprehend what we've read? We cannot test ourselves. Think of what would happen if students devised their own tests and graded them too. Every one of them would get an A. But how many of them would really know their subject? Many students of Zen read a book and then, by way of testing their comprehension, engage friends in sophomoric arguments, or regale them with lordly pronouncements. Teachers say of these discussions, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. The one-eyed person is king. A good teacher is indispensable. A good teacher engages us and determines if we understand what we've studied. If we are unclear about a passage in a book, we cannot question the book. If we disagree with certain views of a teacher, we cannot skip over their instruction the way we can skip over troublesome paragraphs. It is often necessary to consult with a good teacher. There is no substitute for regular face-to-face interactions. You know, there was once a sailor who, while on leave, met the girl of his dreams. He fell madly in love with her. Unfortunately, he had to return to his ship to finish the 2 years of his enlistment. So he thought, I will not let her forget me. Every day I will write to her. If nothing else, she will love me for my fidelity, for my constant attention, faithfulness. Every day, wherever he was, he wrote to her. And when he returned 2 years later, he learned that along about his 200th letter, she had married the mailman. Dear friends, don't be like that poor sailor who relied on the written word to achieve an understanding. Try to find a teacher who will meet regularly with you. Open your heart to them. The better they get to know you, the better they will be able to advise and instruct you. Anyone have a question about this or a comment about this? Importance of the first the first aspect of the Eightfold Path, this right understanding, and the necessity to develop right understanding, not just in belief or intellectual understanding or textual understanding, but through a relationship with an experienced person. And we can understand that this also applies to anything that is a skill that you are passionate about, whether it's carpentry or art or yoga, whatever it might be that you really have an interest in developing. There's something indispensable about meeting with someone, connecting with someone who has more experience with it than you do. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So if you are a woodworker and you are quite skilled and you have a chance to spend time with a woodworker who is extremely skilled, or maybe some like a sculptor, someone who sculpts marble, um, there is a there's a benefit to that that simply cannot be found outside of the relationship with that person. So face-to-face interactions are indispensable. Um, and it doesn't need to be that you give your, here's my life, here's my body, here's my bank account, you're my master, tell me what to do. It doesn't need to be like that. But having these face-to-face interactions with people who are more experienced than you, and asking their advice and connecting with them deeply and opening up to them about your understanding, and then they can inform you, they can give you some guidance. For me, um, I always appreciate when that opportunity is there to connect deeply with someone who has a lot more experience than me. And even if it's only, that I'm only living with them for a short time, or that I can only have a few meals with them, or have a few talks with them, there's something very valuable about that time. And the more that you open your heart, the more that you're willing to be transparent, the better that person can advise you. Just like for the woodworker or the sculptor, they can only advise you to a certain limit until they see what you can do, until they know about your skills. So, dear friends, don't be like that poor sailor who relied on the written word to achieve an understanding. Find a teacher who will meet regularly with you. Open your heart to them. The better they get to know you, the better they will be able to advise and instruct you. So that's right understanding. The second step is right thought. Right thought requires us to become aware of our motivations. I do just want to add this. Having a relationship with a teacher or someone who has a lot of experience, it isn't always that you are somehow put in a diminished position. Actually, having a relationship with an experienced practitioner can lift you up because they see you and they say, wow, you do have some experience. You have made some progress. You have some understanding. And then you go further. Maybe it's a Western thing, maybe it's a human thing, but there's always this idea of kind of submission or to be lesser than someone if they have more experience than you. Or if you go to someone for advice that somehow they are above you. And we can be very egoic, that we always think a relationship where someone is more experienced is putting us in a place of being lesser. But in fact, it can empower us. It can support us to have a clearer understanding of where we are and what we're doing. So the second step is right thought. Right thought requires us to become aware of our motivations. Always, we must inquire why we want to have something or why we want to do something. And we must be ruthless in our inquiry. We must be ruthless in this looking into, why am I doing this? What is this really about for me? Why am I so focused on getting this one particular result? If a friend wanted to purchase something they couldn't afford, or to do something that was bad for them, we would give them sound advice, cautioning them, helping them to see the likely outcome of their foolish desires. Can we not be that kind of friend to ourselves? Can we not apply ordinary common sense to our own desires? And patience tends to be a preventative, a healing, and protective way to manage any desire. If you have an impulse to buy something, especially a big purpose, or if you have an impulse to go somewhere or to quit something, just be patient, just wait. And after waiting, after being patient I really need to say this, I need to stand my ground here. Just to be patient, just to wait. And if it's really skillful, if it's really valuable, then you'll do it. You'll say it for sure. Careful investigation will illuminate our situation. The warlord Tian Qi and the king of Qi enjoyed the sport of horse racing. Regularly, they met to race their horses. Now, each had 3 classes of horses. The third class was the draft horse. These are the horses that pull wagons. They are big and strong, but very slow. The second class was the cavalry horse. These are the horses upon which lancers, archers, and swordsmen are mounted. These horses are strong and reasonably fast, but they are older because they require years of training. The first class of horse was the young thoroughbred, upon which noblemen and high officers would be mounted. This class of horse was light and very fast. So whenever the king and the warlord held a racing contest, they would race all their third-class horses against each other. Then they would race their second-class horses, and last, they would race their first-class thoroughbreds. Now, the king was very rich and possessed much better horses than the warlord, so naturally he won all the races. In his frustration, warlord Tian Qi appealed to Sun Ping, a wise descendant of Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu wrote the famous Art of War. Tian Qi asked Sun Ping, "Please advise me. How can I win against the king?" Okay, so now time for some interactivity. Let's see who is the powerful wisdom master here. What is the solution? What is the advice to give to solve this problem so that the warlord Tian Qi can defeat the king in this series of races? Does anybody have an idea? Certainly someone can take a try.
To not race him.
Okay, so Kai so graciously says to not race, so to give up the race. I think that's still a defeat by forfeiture. But how about anyone else can consider how can the warlord defeat the king in this series of races?
To sabotage the king, maybe?
Sabotage the king. Okay. So now we're getting into kind of maybe to poison the king or something like that. If the king is dead, then certainly cannot win a race, right?
To forget about the horses and race on foot against him.
So to challenge the king to a foot race. Okay. All right.
Promote some of his thoroughbreds up a couple ranks.
To promote, could you say more about this idea to promote their horses so they can't necessarily have be a general or an archer, but
They can be horse generals, of course. You can go to the other ranks, right? What is it? Draft horses and the ones that carry the military people. Just give it to the what is it? Green Arm, the new guy in the military. He can have one of the thoroughbreds, and so he can win the first two races and lose the third.
okay. So let's leave it there. There's some wisdom there for sure, but let's see what the wise man thought here in the story. The wise man thought for a moment, then he said, or rather Abi thought for a moment, and then he said, "Sir," I'm paraphrasing Abi here, "Sir, I suggest that when the king sends his third-class horses into competition, you send in your second-class horses to race against them. When the king sends in his second-class horses, you send in your first-class horses. And when the king sends in his first-class horses, you send in your third class. You will win 2 out of 3 races." The answer was simple, but why couldn't the warlord figure it out for himself? Because his ego had gotten him too emotionally involved in the competition. He didn't step back from his situation and look at it objectively. He didn't apply right thought. Dear friends, be ruthless in your examination of your desires. Apply to yourself the same common sense you would use to counsel a friend. So this is a very clear and very good teaching. And the practice of it that comes up for me is when you have this strong desire for a hot shower. We only get hot showers 2 times a week here at the temple, that we have a hot water. So when you have that desire for a hot shower, just stop for a second, look closely at that desire for a hot shower. You don't have to not take hot showers anymore, but look closely at that desire. For me, I wake up and then I take a cold shower. I'm very proud of that. But then I have a coffee. Okay, so I have this desire to have a coffee in the morning with some cream. It's not vegan, but it should be. Okay, that would be better for sure. So it'd be more wholesome. So for me, to stop in the morning before I have that coffee, before I prepare it, before I kind of rush into time to have coffee, time to prepare it, to just stop and really look closely at that desire to do that thing. And it can be for anything. It can be for relaxing. It can be for going for a walk. It can be anything. So, dear friends, be ruthless in your examination of your desires. Apply to yourself the same common sense you would use to counsel a friend. Anyone have something to share about right thought? Okay. So the third step, the third part of the Eightfold Path, also we can keep in mind that this is really a direct telling of what is the Buddhist religion. What is Buddhist philosophy? It's the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. That's what we're looking at right now. So this is the very burning ember at the fire of what is Buddhism, is this. The third step is right speech. How often do we impress words into the ego's service? To gain some advantage, we gossip or we exaggerate, or we neglect to tell the whole story, or we insinuate the probable guilt of others while protesting our own inviolable innocence. Sometimes, just to be the center of attention, many of us will tell sordid tales or smutty jokes. So sometimes to be the center of attention, we will just be nasty. We will just say things that are not wholesome. We think that words are not deeds, that they have little power and a short life, that somehow words just evaporate with the breath that speaks them. But words do have power, and they can live forever. And furthermore, they can heal as well as harm. Just as right speech discourages us from uttering falsehoods, insults, accusations, or from bragging about our own accomplishments, such as mentioning taking a cold shower in the morning, it also encourages us to speak words of comfort, to utter words of forgiveness, to express acknowledgement and appreciation for the accomplishments of others. Never underestimate the power of words. Let me tell you an old story which illustrates their power. It was a beautiful day in spring, and many people had come to the park to see the green grass and the flowering trees and plants. Among the people who came were two blind beggars. The first beggar had a sign that read, "I am blind." Most people just walked past him and kept on admiring the view. The second beggar did much better. Nearly everyone who passed him put a coin in his cup. Some people who had walked past him without giving actually turned around to go back and give him a coin. His sign read, "It is May, and I am blind!" Exclamation point. Dear friends, when deciding to speak or not to speak, Think about that blind man who saw how much difference one little phrase can make. And when I first read this, I didn't have a clear understanding of the story, but I believe it's this beautiful day in spring and people coming to the park. And especially in the past, before we had computers and so much technology and screens inside, to go out to the park on a beautiful day, it's like heaven. It's one of these really heavenly, wonderful treats that we can have. So the first beggar had a sign that said, "I am blind," and the second beggar had a sign that said, "It is May and I am blind." So kind of have pity. So think about next time when deciding to speak or not to speak, think about that blind man who saw how much difference one little phrase can make. Anyone like to say something about right speech?
In May, it is the time in the Western Hemisphere for blossoms. So there would be peach blossoms, apple blossoms, cherry blossoms, pear blossoms, lots of blossoms.
The fourth step, and this will be the last step that we'll go over today, and then we'll do the next four tomorrow. The fourth step is right action. Right action contains the precepts. The Buddhist vows to be nonviolent. This does not mean that they cannot defend their life or the lives of those persons who are in their care, but rather that they cannot initiate hostile actions against others. But what about themselves? They also are one of the people against whom they may take no hostile action. So, not taking hostile action against ourselves is a part of this precept of right action, of nonviolence. Peace is not merely the absence of war. Anxiety is not an aggressive state, but it isn't peaceful either. The person who's in a coma is not at war, but they are not at peace either. Peace is a state that is deliberately achieved and maintained. It is not enough merely to be nonviolent. We must also act to promote harmony, well-being, and good health. Smoking, for example, is inimical, not only to the smoker's health, but to the health of all around them. Inimical is tending to obstruct or harm. On both counts, then, smoking is forbidden by the precept against violence. Whenever possible, a Buddhist should abstain from eating meat. I say whenever possible because this rule is not absolute. Many people, for example, live in Arctic regions where they have no choice but to eat fish and other marine creatures. They cannot grow gardens in the tundra, and we cannot deny the Dharma to human beings because their environment is not conducive to vegetarian diets. But where vegetables are plentiful, there is no reason to eat meat. On the positive side, a vegetarian diet promotes good health, and for this reason also it should be followed. Exercise, particularly Qigong, releases aggression and anger and also has a salubrious effect on the body. Yoga is also very beneficial. And we may not be in a situation to become vegetarian. This is something that can be very sensitive for people, but we can recognize the skillfulness, the wholesomeness, the goodness of being vegetarian. And so we can move away slowly to, for some of us, it might just be a little tiny bit that we move away or we redirect our consumption away from meat eating, especially celebrating meat eating. It's not this big, wonderful thing. It tends to be really violent and really horrible. So moving away from meat eating, moving towards vegetarianism, and this is something that a lot of people are doing, and it can also make a great impact on our environment being healthier. So it's not the act itself of eating meat that is harmful, it's the violence that goes into producing that meat. And it is the endorsement of that violence that is done by choosing to eat meat, searching out meat, purchasing meat, asking for meat. So if we can move away from it, it's really good. It's really wholesome. One member of our group, Morgan, who's actually staying at a temple right now and is not here, actually spoke about how moving towards vegetarianism, thinking about this right action, led something as simple as going to the grocery store to be a meditation. Because now they were going through the food aisles and they were considering mindfully how what they purchase and what they buy will affect others. So bringing that intention and that idea of moving towards vegetarianism can help us to be a lot more mindful in our shopping, in our consumption. And also to do some kind of exercise, some kind of yoga for the health of the body and the health of the mind. 2, for right action, the Buddhist vows to be truthful, not only in their social life, but in their business life as well. All forms of cheating and chicanery, the use of trickery, are included in this precept. Whenever we sacrifice truth in order to gain some imagined advantage, we enter a tangled, convoluted world. In Tokyo, there were 2 merchants who, after years of competitive conniving and deceit, thoroughly distrusted each other. One day they met at the railroad station. The first merchant asked, "Where are you going?" The second merchant thought for a moment and answered, "To Kobe." The first merchant gasped, "You liar! You tell me you are going to Kobe because you want me to think you are going to Osaka, but I have made inquiries and I know you are going to Kobe." Dear friends, this is the destination of even the smallest deceit. Our reputations are like the label on a shipping box. Once we are known as liars and cheaters, we consign our intentions, no matter how innocent, to the place of doubt and mistrust. So this right action has quite a bit more list and numbers of the different aspects of right action, kind of how we contain our life with morality. So we're going to start off with that tomorrow. We'll continue with the right action tomorrow, and we'll go ahead and stop here and do a final meditation practice together, and then we'll end. Okay, just a short period of meditation together before we finish. So take a moment to adjust your posture. Make sure that you are comfortable. And also upright. Our shoulders are back. We're not hunched over. We're not sucked into the computer screen or kind of collapsing in on ourselves, but our shoulders are back. Our chest is up. Our spine is straight. This helps both the body to get a lot of oxygen, to a lot of fresh air, and also it supports us to be aware and awake. So take a moment to find your meditation position. Bringing your attention and focus onto the breath and the body, your meditation method. And as we hear the sound of the bell, we are invited for just a few minutes to let these teachings soak in, sink into our body and mind, and to enjoy this stillness, this calm, this awareness for a few more minutes, beginning with the sound of the bell. Okay, so we can all bring our hands together and we just say in closing this Buddhist word sadhu, and we say all together 3 times. Okay? Sadhu. 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 All right. Thank you all for joining. Our next session will be in 5 hours at 2 p.m. New York time. So hopefully we'll see you there. Okay? Take care. Thank you for joining. So we have some work practice now. Any particular project to bring up? Wanted to look at the wood, so if anyone want to join in that.
Yeah. I would like to do a little bit cleaning of the Dhamma hall, and I could use one volunteer for this. And then maybe the guys help on with the wood.
You can help with the Dhamma hall.